Oh yeah, this is better, I think.
Okay, good.
Can you turn your phone, or do you have a phone, or?
I have a phone, yeah.
Can you turn it sideways?
Like this?
Yeah, that's better. Welcome to the Post-Capitalist Architecture TV show. We are now producing material for the second episode, which is about flow. The first one was about sort of vernacular architecture and materiality of the North, and now we're moving on to sort of think a little bit more about materials and the flow of things.
Music is a very interesting experience in that respect, because music has duration. It lasts for a time. Then it is a wonderful metaphor or illustration of how we perceive time and what are the important things while we are perceiving things. For example, some music, it's important what the lyrics say, what the cognitive content of the song is. And other songs are, you have this more emotive experience, an abstract experience.
Men det ser jævlig kult ut. Setter bare inn på eka da.
This is the FFB mobile, where we will be making a TV studio now. It's a Mercedes printer, which we've been working with for some years with my architecture collective, Fellesskapsprosjektet og For dette byen. We are now making it into a TV studio. We are getting light, electronics, internet, sound equipment ready, but we're also making a kind of a cozy environment out of some natural material, out of some material we've been sort of sourcing from different places. So today that's our task, is to create this little environment inspired by the traditional Sami architecture. Today we have an appointment with Ende Zombie. He's a lawyer and a musician, a joiker, and an artist from the University of Tromsø. He's based in Tromsø. He's from the Datno River area, and he's a treasure chest of quotes and brilliant comments. It's always an inspiration to have a chat with Ende.
And my take to these questions have been that since I'm a joiker, then joik can be one way to perceive time and to experience time. And since I'm a consumer of songs, I like to listen to different types of music. So then songs are another way to understand time. And one very visible contrast between joik and songs are the way to structure time. That a song is a linear structure, that a song has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in that respect, it's a line. As joiks, they in cycles where you have a basic set of rules, and then you have spaces for improvisation, where you can sort of show your skill and your melodiosity and also your poetical qualities, and basically that leads to that in the skill you need in a song is that you have rehearsed, so you can hit the pitch, you can have that you are precise in your singing. So that is a competence of, you have to have planned every step on the way, and you have to, through your rehearsal you have plans how you achieve that performance. And in contrast, you have the competence of, one could say that you have to have the competence of planning when singing. And in contrast, you have to have the competence of improvisation in joiking, that you have these sort of basic rules in every joik, that you, when you hear that joik, you recognize that it's this joik, this particular joik, that is joik. And then you can start to listen, and then you listen in where the joiker is putting the emphasis, and thereby you sort of understand where this joiker comes from, for how long time this joiker has been joiking, and and if it's a very advanced yoiker, and that you can hear in any yoik. One famous yoik is the yoik of Nils Aslak Valkeapää, and it goes like this. So everybody who has heard that yoik will recognize that. Yeah, it is this yoik. But if you then are on and you can be on different levels when it comes to that yoik, and oftentimes the distinguishment is in the details. So, for example, Inga used to the good yoiker, whom I used to call the Janis Joplin of yoik. She had, for example, put a signature in that yoik. So I used to call that signature the Inga signature, and it was.
So we're picking up Lan Paulsen now, my car mechanic. There he is. Hopefully explain to us a little bit about his deep philosophy of car mechanics. He's a little bit like a car mechanical shaman in a way, with special gifts. Hey Lan.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good.
Actually, I learned it from Africa.
Lagos.
Lagos, yes. You know, we use cars more than you people in Norway because we don't change things. We have to repair it.
But about this car, it's a car from 1996,
Yeah.
4-wheel drive. What's your thought on the engine?
Oh, this is one of the best engine so far that Mercedes produce. Very strong and dependable, and it's trouble-free. And I like the way you maintain your cars. You buy new things. When I tell you you have to change this, you change it immediately. So that is why your car looks like new every time. Despite you have a lot of rust, which I always fix every now and then.
Yeah.
But the car goes strong. Then you can rest assured. So,
Cool. Do you have any appointments here, Lan?
no, I think you said I should come here.
Yeah.
So I want to see how your kilometer. Yeah, you know this. Your own is 337,213 kilometers.
Yeah.
So if you maintain this engine the way you are maintaining it, you can still go like 200,000 more.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure of the
Yeah.
chassis.
But the chassis we've been.
It's weak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have approved workshop.
I'm very inspired by your way of thinking about repair,
Yeah.
and I think it's a very cultural, distinct thing that is about to disappear in the mainstream Norwegian society. Every generation knows less and less about repairing and fixing things.
Yeah, because you see the new generation of motor mechanics. They came when the technology is so advanced, so they don't work too. Their practical experience is not as much as the theoretical aspect of the. So this is the main problem. So, but when you know much about practical and the theory, then you combine it, then you have achieved your goals. Like some of them just finished like 4 or 5 years ago. They cannot repair engine, they can only change. I just finished repairing it. I changed parts inside because it's for an old car, so it's not easy to get complete gearbox. But the new ones is available. So I bought the new ones and repaired it.
I also am really admiring your sense of responsibility. Like the story of when we had our car fixed here.
Yeah.
And we drove for 3 hours to Bardufoss, and our car just immediately stopped, and you came in the middle of the night through a snowstorm driving out.
Yeah.
Slid down under our car, and it took you 5 minutes, and you realized what it was.
Yes.
Made a little makeshift repair on the car so we could finish our trip.
I remember.
Yeah. That's
Because the cars to me, to my customers, is like a doctor to a patient. When somebody is sick, he calls his doctor. You see how doctor is very, very caring that, oh, you are sick, you have to come. So when my customer calls me, they have a breakdown with their vehicles, it touches me. So that's why I say, okay, I'm coming. And I work on your car for almost 4 or 5 years now. So I know how you repair your cars. And when you call me something is making noise from the wheels, I told you it might not be the wheels because I just finished the brakes.
Yeah, so it was something different.
So when I got there, I checked on that, then I saw it immediately.
Yeah. It's been a very interesting relationship to feel this kind of trust also. And it's good. Yeah.
That's why I don't switch off my phone. So my customer can call me 1 o'clock in the night.
I met Dimitris a few years ago during my European Everything road trip from the north of Europe to the south of Europe by car. Dimitris is a Greek anthropologist living and working in Athens, where he's been doing extensive studies on the road as an anthropological subject. His book, The Road, is a real recommended reading. I've been in touch with Dimitris since I met him. And one of the things we've been discussing extensively is the term flow.
Flow is a very interesting concept for anthropology. I am an anthropologist by profession, so I approach roads from an anthropological perspective. Because it is underestimated when we study highways, roads, mobility infrastructure. Any type of network infrastructure, from a pipe up to a road, include 2 basic parts. The first is its materiality, its solid infrastructure part, materiality part, and the flows within it. It's very important to understand that if you may have plenty of infrastructures which have solid materiality but no flows. And of course, you can have also flows without infrastructure. Quite often, we have flow of borders without roads. And it can be a flow which is very big, animals, herders, cars, what we tend to call illegal or smuggling activities, or what the police tends to call, but I don't necessarily neither the one nor the other. But we have flows which ignore the official infrastructures. At the same time, infrastructure, network infrastructures, have materiality without flows. What people do not know is that plenty of infrastructures were constructed as a political project and not as a functional, useful project. So the majority of modern motorways were created well before automobility, because they were a project that state apparatuses wanted to show off their power. So you had plenty of roads, you have plenty of the infrastructural network, materiality, but no flows in there. So you have to understand that there are two separated things, and we often tend to consider them as something that comes together, but they don't really come together.
Being schooled as an archaeologist, you're always looking backward in time, and you're like tracing the meaning of things, or you're trying to find out the one specific, meaning and function an object had in the past, and trying to pin it down to a specific past as well, and even to a specific origin or location where it was produced, and so on. And so you're really trying to narrow objects down. That's often what archaeology is about. But what we were trying to do, and I've been trying to do in my work, is maybe to unlearn that that way of approaching things, and rather trying to open things up. And even though it's very interesting and relevant to know where things come from, what specifically they were used to, I find it also very interesting and very relevant in the current global situation to be more aware of how things like drift or flow, if you like, out of those very narrow definitions, and become something that was never thought of in their production or in their use in the past. So and that's what I've been become more and more maybe aware of when working with things that drift around in the ocean and wash up on beaches.
Okay, now if you point your camera this way, you can I put all the colored stuff next to each other, and I think there's something really nice happening when you start to sort of slowly see the colors together, and getting to know them a bit in this more sort of sensitive way. When they're in a trash, on a mountain of metal trash, they're in so many ways. The materials are, they're not speaking their own language in a way. Or maybe they are speaking their own language, I don't know. But it's definitely a louder kind of language. So thinking about object-oriented ontology and the rather speculative idea about an object having some kind of a soul, what's your thoughts on that?
I think, what I find fascinating and fruitful about theoretical framework called object-oriented ontology, or the various strings of thought within that. We look at an object and we can hold it in our hands, but what they emphasize is that we can't really understand at any point the complete object, or its full potential. It can always, and that's what I find very fruitful when you're thinking about the future of an object and how it can drift out of the very narrow idea we may have about what it is, what its name is, and what it can be used for. Whether or not to refer to that as a soul, I mean, I guess you can do that. Some would probably say that would be sort of, I don't know, animistic or maybe anthropomorphic, like making the object like human-like. But you can also just, talk about agency. We refer to, humans have agency, animals can have agency, and objects can have agency. I don't know which name I would give to that, but I think it's, for me, in my research, it's quite central to think in that way, that objects are more than what we are able to understand or foresee, or there's always this drift resting in them somehow, even though we may have control over them or assume control over them at a given moment. There is always this unrest within them, and they will always be able, through associations with other objects, with weather, oceans, whatever, to overcome that narrow idea and drift out of it and become something else, and something monstrous even.
And that is very interesting when it comes, when you have songs and lyrics as contrasting sort of basic metaphors, when you are thinking how we operate with time. But that can be applied to societies we live in. Because some societies where, for example, the climate is stable and every summer is alike the previous summer and will be alike the next summer, and then the winters likewise. So in those worlds, competence of planning is a very important thing, and when you lift that into the societal level, then a society will have, for example, a legislation is a way to plan a society, and then you have budgets, another instrument, and then you have maybe sort of action plans as the third type. And that works very well when the world is stable, like Germany and France, where the philosophers who have formulated very much of the basic principles and move further north, like in our world. Here the competence of improvisation becomes very much more crucial, because the climate can change from hour to hour, from day to day, and the summers are not alike each other. So you always have to, the most important question that you can ask is, what do we do now? What do we do now? And then you meet that, for example, in Tromsø, the city where I live. Here we have the budget for snow plowing, for example. And there the competence of planning comes to a crisis maybe every winter because you can't plan how much snow it would. So I'm thinking that that there are some deep and very important secrets in the way that we perceive time. How we should approach a future, for example. Can we approach a future by planning to that, or should we emphasize the flexibility that lies within the competence of improvisation? Because the downsides by the competence of planning is that the structure becomes very stiff. So if you have aberrations from that, then you will hit a crisis. As the competence of improvisation will, you have the flexibility, but then you also have to have this kind of readiness within you, that you have to always to think a lot of scenarios in your life, and that is also in yoiking that for example, when you perform a yoik, then there will be things happening in the room that can have implications for your performance, and then you have to sort of be able to include that. I had one situation myself. It was an art piece that was we had an opening, and I was there to perform a yoik there, and it was a very stormy day this day. So the wind was blowing into the microphone all the time, and that could be a very disturbing noise. So then when my performance was to start, then I took the microphone, I held it to the wind and let the wind blow into the microphone. And I said that today we are a duo performing here, me and the wind. And then I started to perform, and when the wind then blew into the microphone, that became sort of a part of the performance, and it worked very well. So the energy is that you can sort of look at something that could be a noise in your situation, and then to turn that noise around and let that noise be a part of what you are doing, and giving you the energy to go forward. And that applies in the I used to call it the yoik way of thinking. That where in the yoik way of thinking, the most important question is, what do we do now?